Hi everyone, my name is Ashton. You can't imagine what happened to me, or rather to my family as a whole. But first, please answer one question. Do you think that all ages are really important for love? It doesn't matter to you that your match is older than you, much more, or opposite, if she is younger than you do not mind? Personally, I've always thought that everything matters except feelings. And if two people love each other, why not, right? Write your answers under my story in the comments, and I will definitely read each one. When I was 10 years old, I first fell in love. Yes, he was a friend of my father. And yes, he was much older than me. It seemed to me that this is the most real love. Every time he came to our house, I couldn't take my eyes off him. He saw it and was embarrassed. I would sit next to him or opposite and look at his face. He was my crush, and there's nothing you can do about it. My dad used to laugh when he saw it. Mr. Sanders always spoiled me too, and brought me lots of presents, especially for the holidays. And then he got married. He and his family moved to another country, and since then, he and Dad communicate only by video link. I've told this story 100 times to my girlfriend. I swear to you, he loved me. I always shouted to her, laughing, but Anna, my best friend's name, always giggled out loud and didn't believe it. She thought I made up the story. We were already 17 years old, and we all remembered the story and laughed. Anna, unlike me, looked much older. She was taller, seemed to be an adult, and her character and manner of communication were also not similar to mine as a teenager. When she came to our house, my grandfather greeted her especially warmly. He was still young in principle. He was at that time 60 years old when Anna and I began to visit each other. My grandfather lived with me, my father, and my mother. My grandmother died a long time ago, and since then, my grandfather lived with us. He loved her very much, as she loved him. But Grandma got sick and couldn't recover. Enough time had passed since the funeral, but my grandfather was still single, which seemed normal to us. Like his age, and there is no need to build a personal life. But this was only our opinion, and it turned out to be wrong. My grandfather was very active. As I said, he played sports, went to the gym, worked, and my grandfather was particularly scrupulous about his appearance, style, and ironed clothes. We didn't pry into his business, so we thought he was just doing it. But as it turned out, he was in a relationship, and he managed to hide them so carefully. It was just amazing. So, one day, Anna came to our house with pizza and a pie that she baked herself. It turned out that her mother went to a friend, her brother to a girl, and Anna was left alone. She was afraid to spend the night in the big house, so she asked to come to me. I was only happy. As soon as she arrived, we sat down to dinner. All through dinner, my grandfather seemed to be out of his mind, talking incessantly, joking, and making everyone laugh. After dinner, we decided to walk down the street with her, and Anna asked how old my grandfather was. I told her what and how, and she suddenly stopped talking. When I asked her what was wrong, she just said that everything was fine, and added that he looked younger than her grandfather, even though they were the same age. Yes, we have young parents, and they gave birth to us early. Before going to bed, Anna asked me how I would react if I had a new grandmother, and I told her that I would be happy for my grandfather. It's high time for him to find a single woman and be with her, and why not? Because they would live together, love each other, and build their own happiness, I said, to which my friend asked, what if my new grandmother was younger than my grandfather? I said what I really thought, that all ages are submissive to love. What difference does it make when two hearts truly love each other? Of course not. A couple of days later, when we met again, Anna said that she had something important to tell me, but I couldn't talk because I had to rush home for a family meeting. Anna chattered something after me, but I said I would call her back and ran home. On the way, I stopped by my mother's office. We went to the store, and when we got home, we saw that the house was set for a festive dinner. Are we celebrating something? The parents asked. My grandfather was sitting in the hall, looking so handsome in his shirt, but he said he wanted to tell us something. He started by saying that he was happy to have a family like us and blah blah. We sped him up to talk business, and grandfather said, "I'm getting married." That was news. I jumped off and ran to him. It was wonderful. I asked her to meet us. My parents hugged my grandfather and congratulated him. And then Anna came out of the kitchen. I was scared when I saw her. "Oh, when did we agree to meet? I told you I'd call," I told her. But Anna was timid as she walked towards me. Then my grandfather came up to her and hugged her. We stood there, shocked by what we saw. "What's going on here?" I asked, and my grandfather was like, "This is my future wife." He said, "What? What did you say? How is that? What do you mean? But how so?" I could not find normal words. I looked at Anna, and she said that she tried to tell me this, but I didn't listen to her. My parents sat on the couch and drank water, and I just couldn't believe this was happening. I suddenly felt somehow uneasy. How and when they managed to hook up, and in general, why exactly? Suddenly, I felt angry and ran to my room. Anna ran after me, but I shooed her away. I didn't want to see her. I had the feeling that she had betrayed me. My mother came to see me in the evening. She tried to talk to me, but I suddenly started crying. She said that Grandpa loved Anna and really wanted to marry her. But my mother also agrees that the situation is strange. "Okay, she'll be your grandmother and she'll be my mother-in-law," my mother said. And then I laughed. And it dawned on me that my father would call her Mama. I started laughing, and my grandfather came to see me. Mom left us alone. Grandpa apologized for hiding it from me and all of us, but he was just afraid, thought it would all go away, but he understands that he really loves her and wants to be with her. We talked for a long time, and I began to understand that I could not prevent their happiness. After all, my grandfather was loyal to my grandmother, and he loved her, and who would have known what would happen? And when I reasoned like this, I knew that Anna is a great girl. She is precocious, smart, and beautiful. She is a good person, and my grandfather will be happy with her. So I finally stopped freaking out and made up with my grandfather. Anna came into my room a few minutes later. I hugged her and told her I would never call her my granny. We laughed and then went to dinner. Yes, it sounds crazy, and it is. They were married a month later. Her parents were also not happy about the fact that her daughter's husband is older than them, but what to do? You can't tell your heart what to do.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jung. I'm an only child in my own right, but every time I go out in public with my mom, they say, "What a beautiful sister you have." The thing is, my mother looks 20 years old. Once it got in my way. My mother's name is Kim, and our age difference is 20 years, so she is now 36. My mom always looked great. For as long as I can remember, she's been wearing makeup in the morning and in the evening. My father admires her beauty every day, and my mother says that it's all about blood. We are Koreans. We age slowly outwardly. And then literally in one day, we are closer to old age. I believed her because I had a clear example before my eyes. My mother and I were about the same height, 160 centimeters, but I was a little plumper, and my mother is slim. I was already used to loud compliments to her every time we went to the stores or to the market for food. At first, I didn't think it was because my mom looked great, but rather that I didn't look great. But then she found out that she was told that in any society. And then I began to take advantage of this. A young mother is a mother who understands. She taught me how to use cosmetics and bought a separate one for me, for young skin. She allowed me to wear her things, shoes, and made me beautiful hairstyles without any problems. I love to record videos and post everything online. My mother never refused to participate in commercials. She had a great sense of humor and sang divinely. We didn't look much alike. I looked more like my father. I only shared my secrets about guys with her. I knew that she would always support and give good advice. Just recently, I met a guy named Lin. He was new in our class. Oh, all my classmates noticed such a handsome boy. And oddly enough, he began to communicate more with me than anyone else. There was no limit to my happiness. We sat together in class, and every day he brought me some fruit for lunch. It's the cutest thing you can think of. Lynn started courting me and returned the favor. I told my mother about our first kiss, and she wished me luck and told me not to lose my head. I knew she was happy for me, even though she was very worried. Lynn and I went on dates 1 to 2 times a week, to the movies, to cafes, or just for a walk. We always had something to talk about. I fell more and more in love with him. Once, he even wrote a song in my honor and sang it when we were sitting in the park at sunset. It was beautiful. Then came my birthday. Lynn and I decided to celebrate with friends at the club. He promised to pick me up in the evening, told me to be ready by 7. All day, my mother and I ran around looking for an outfit for me, and I found the perfect dress and shoes. I couldn't wait to show my favorite guy. "You're just a princess," my mother said as she helped me get ready for the party. She gave me one last hug, and I just had to put the finishing touches on it. The bell rang in the house, and my mother ran to open the door. It was my lover. Beaming with happiness and sequins, I went down the stairs. My mother was just talking to him about something. I kissed her on the cheek, and we went to the club. "You didn't say you had a sister," Lynn said on the way. "I don't have one. It's my mother," I said. His face changed in an instant. It was evident that he was shocked. "Your mom? She looks so young," he said. I reassured him by telling him that he wasn't the first person to say that. The evening was fun and easy, except that Lynn was acting a little strange. Not as usual. "Is everything all right?" I asked him when we parted, but he assured me that everything was fine. All the time that followed, Lynn seemed to be thinking about something. He skipped questions, often got confused in the answers, always thinking about something. I told my mother about it, and she suggested that I invite him to dinner with us. It was a great idea. We made dinner, and Lynn came in time. Dad was on a business trip at the time, so the 3 of us spent the evening together. "This is for you," he said, handing a bunch of flowers to my mom. She was flattered and politely thanked him. "Why are you dressed up like this? We're not going to a restaurant," I told him and laughed. He was embarrassed. This evening, I saw it from the other side, as it is. Strange, unusual. Lynn talked a lot, asked my mother a million questions, and laughed. I suddenly felt that the evening was passing me by. You are familiar with the phrase, third extra? So this is about me. Then, Lynn left without even kissing me. My mood sank at the end. My mother started asking questions about what had happened, because everything was wonderful. "Didn't I tell you we didn't have any secrets?" So I told her to her face. "I think he's got a crush on you," I told her. My mother's eyes almost popped out of her head in surprise, but I still had an unpleasant feeling in my heart. I couldn't stop thinking that I was right. How disgusting is it that your boyfriend falls in love with your mother? Ugh. What should I do now? After half an hour of denial, my mother finally gave up. She said it was a ridiculous situation and she was embarrassed. "I didn't mean for this to happen. I'm sorry," she said. But I knew that it wasn't my mother's fault. Lynn called the next day. I had a dry chat with him, and he said he would come to visit me. "No, I want to go for a walk," I said curtly. I heard that he was upset, but I didn't care. In the evening, I went out to him on the street, and we went to the park. He asked almost nothing about me, but he asked 1,000 questions about my mother. Then I broke down and exploded. I was filled with jealousy, anger, stupidity of the situation. "Can you stop talking about my mom? Aren't you ashamed at all? She is my mother, and you are openly hitting on her," I shouted at him. Lynn strenuously denied it. "You thought I was being polite and paying more attention to her. I wanted to make a positive impression, nothing more," he said, but I didn't believe him. I knew too well when he was lying. The problem was that I fell head over heels in love with this guy, but I knew that such a relationship would not go far. Gathering my thoughts, I took a deep breath and said we should break up. Lynn was sad, but I was also hurt. I called a taxi and went home hysterical. My mother calmed me for a long time. She comforted me with gentle strokes on the head. I didn't realize I'd fallen asleep. All of a sudden, I had a dream about my mom getting a divorce from my dad and marrying my ex-boyfriend. "Oh no, this is terrible. This can't be happening," I screamed. I woke up screaming, a lump in my throat, my hands shaking. And suddenly, I heard my mother arguing with someone. I crept out into the hall and saw Lynn standing outside the door, and my mother talking to him. He is holding a bouquet of flowers. I moved closer to hear the conversation. I couldn't believe it. He confessed his love for her, you bastard! My mother told him sternly that he was old enough to be a father, that he was not worthy of her daughter, and that he should get out of our lives once and for all. She was so angry, and then she took the flowers from his hands and threw them away. Go away and don't come back, she screamed. What was it like for me? It was awful, disgusting, and bad. But despite the situation, my relationship with my mother has not changed. I realized that Lynn was just not the right person for me. What would you do if you were me? Write an answer in the comments and subscribe to this channel. There are still a lot of more interesting stories to come.